There is a reason your attention slowed down, just enough to land here. Out of everything you could be doing, out of every distraction pulling at your focus, something in you paused and listened. That pause was not random. That hesitation was not accidental. That moment, right there, when you felt the subtle pull to stay, was the beginning of something shifting inside you. He is speaking now. Not loudly, not forcefully, but with a presence that cuts through noise without needing to compete with it. Archangel Michael stands at the edge of your awareness, not as a distant symbol, but as a messenger stepping into your moment with precision. He does not arrive when it is convenient. He arrives when it is necessary. And this is his necessary, because something you have believed about yourself for a long time is no longer stable. It is beginning to crack, and you may not have noticed it fully yet, but you have felt it. In the quiet moments, in a way certain thoughts don't sit the same anymore, in a way old labels feel uncomfortable, almost like clothes that no longer fit. You've tried to go back to familiar thinking, familiar reactions, familiar identity, but something resists. Something inside you says this is not who you are anymore. That voice is not confusion. That voice is awakening. Michael reveals this clearly. The belief you held about yourself, the one that shaped your decisions, your relationships, your limits, is being rewritten. Not solely, not subtly, but deliberately. And once it changes, everything connected to it will begin to shift as well. This is why things have felt different lately. You may have noticed people responding to you differently even when you haven't said anything new. You may have sensed tension where there used to be ease, or distance where there used to be closeness. You may have questioned yourself, wondering, did I do something wrong? No, you didn't. You changed. And when you change internally, the world around you begins to reorganize itself to match that new frequency. Some things align, others fall away, but none of it is random. This is the divine interruption. It doesn't come to disrupt your life, it comes to realign it. And right now, Michael is urging you to pay attention, because this moment is more important than it appears. This is not just a passing thought. This is not just a fleeting feeling. This is the early stage of identity transformation, the kind that affects not just how you see yourself, but how your life unfolds from this point forward. There is urgency in this message, not fear but timing, because when a belief begins to shift, there is a narrow window where you either lean into it or retreat back into what is familiar. And if you retreat, the old patterns will try to reclaim their place. The old identity will try to reassert itself. The old voice will try to convince you that nothing has changed. But something has. And you know it. You feel it in the way you can no longer tolerate what once felt normal. You feel it in the way your spirit reacts to things that used to go unnoticed. You feel it in the quiet discomfort that rises when you try to shrink yourself back into an outdated version of who you were. That discomfort is not a problem. It is confirmation. Michael does not bring this message to everyone. He brings it to those standing at the edge of transformation, those who are about to step into a new understanding of themselves, whether they feel ready or not. And here's the truth he is revealing to you now. This shift will not only change you, it will affect everything connected to you. Your relationships, your decisions, your direction, your future. Even the way others perceive you will begin to change, because you are no longer operating from the same identity they are used to. This is why you were led here. This is why this moment feels different. This is why you cannot just scroll past and forget. Because something has already begun. And once it begins, it does not stop. So listen closely now. Stay present, because what comes next will reveal exactly what is changing inside you and why it was never meant to stay the same. Type "I am ready" in the comments if you feel this shift beginning within you. Blessing code 1717 is now activating around your spirit. There was a belief planted in you long before you had the language to question it. It did not arrive as a loud declaration. It did not introduce itself as something dangerous or limiting. It came quietly, shaped by moments, reinforced by experiences, and sealed by repetition until it became something you accepted as truth. And over time, without even realizing it, you built your identity around it. He sees it clearly. Archangel Michael stands not just observing your present, but tracing the origin of what has shaped you. He reveals that this belief was never truly yours to carry. It was formed in environments you did not control, influenced by voices that spoke from their own wounds, their own limitations, their own fears. And yet, you absorbed it. You adapted to it. You lived through it. Until one day, it stopped feeling like something you were told and started feeling like something you were. Maybe it told you that you had to be smaller to be accepted. Maybe it convinced you that you were always the one who had to fix things, hold things together, sacrifice more than others. Maybe it whispered that your voice was too much or not enough. Maybe it taught you that love had conditions, that worth had to be earned, that peace was temporary. Whatever form it took, it became the lens through which you saw yourself. And once that lens was in place, everything else aligned around it. You made decisions based on it. You tolerated things because of it. You doubted yourself through it. Even your strengths were filtered through that belief, limiting how far you allowed yourself to go. You may not have noticed it at the time, because it felt normal. It felt familiar. It felt like truth. But it was never truth. And this is what Michael is revealing now with urgency. The belief that once defined you is now being exposed because it can no longer support who you are becoming. This is why you feel the shift. Because what once made sense no longer does. What once felt acceptable now feels heavy. What once felt like your identity now feels like something you are outgrowing. You are not imagining this tension. You are not overthinking this discomfort. You are encountering the breaking point between who you were conditioned to be and who you are actually meant to be. And that space that in between spaces where confusion often tries to rise. But this is not confusion. This is revelation in motion. Michael shows that the belief itself has been quietly losing its grip on you. Situations that once reinforced it are no longer landing the same way. Words that once defined you no longer carry the same weight. Even the way you respond to challenges is beginning to shift. You are less reactive, more aware, more questioning, more unwilling to accept things at face value. That is not accidental. That is transformation. And here is where the truth deepens. This belief did not just shape how you saw yourself. It shaped how others interacted with you. It set the tone for what people expected from you, what they felt they could take from you, how they treated you without even realizing why. Because people respond to the identity you carry, even when it is unspoken. So now, as this belief begins to dissolve, it creates a disruption not only within you but around you. Some people will sense it before they understand it. Some will feel the shift in your energy, your boundaries, your presence. And because they are used to the version of you that operated under that old belief, they may resist this change without even knowing why. They may question you. They may pull back. They may try to draw you back into familiar patterns. But you must understand this clearly. They are not reacting to you doing something wrong. They are reacting to you no longer being who they expected you to be. And that is necessary, because the belief that once shaped you was never designed to carry you into your next level. It was a limitation disguised as identity, and now it is being removed. Michael does not reveal this to overwhelm you. He reveals it to ground you, to help you recognize that what you are feeling is not instability, it is reconstruction. Something false is being stripped away so that something true can take its place. You are not losing yourself. You are finding yourself beneath what was never meant to define you. So do not rush to replace the old belief with another assumption. Do not cling to what is familiar just to feel stable again. Stay in this awareness. Stay in this unfolding. Because what is being revealed now is the foundation of who you are becoming. And once you see it clearly, you will never be able to unsee it. Type I release the OLD in the comments if you are ready to let go of the belief that no longer defines you. Blessing Code 2020 is now aligning your spirit with truth. There comes a moment in every transformation where the old version of you begins to fracture, not all at once, but in subtle, undeniable ways. It does not collapse dramatically. It does not announce itself with clarity. Instead, it reveals itself through discomfort, through misalignment, through a quiet but persistent sense that something within you is no longer holding together the way it used to. And this is where you are now. He is showing you this clearly. Archangel Michael reveals that what you are experiencing is not instability, but the cracking of an identity that has reached its limit. The old self you carried, the one built on that hidden belief, is no longer strong enough to contain the truth that is rising within you. And so, it begins to break, not to destroy you, but to release you. You may have noticed it first in your reactions. Situations that once triggered you deeply now feel distant, almost as if you are observing rather than absorbing. Or the opposite may be happening, where things you once tolerated without question now stir something intense inside you, a refusal, a resistance, a sudden clarity that says, "This is no longer acceptable." That shift in reaction is not random. It is evidence that your internal foundation is changing. You may also feel it in your relationships. Conversations that once flowed easily now feel forced or shallow. People you once felt deeply connected to may suddenly seem out of sync with you. It is not that they have changed overnight. It is that you are no longer meeting them from the same place within yourself. And that difference, that subtle but powerful shift, creates distance where there was once familiarity. This can feel confusing. You may question yourself, wondering if you are becoming too distant, too sensitive, too different. You may try to return to the old way of being, to reconnect with what once felt comfortable. But every time you attempt to step back into that version of yourself, something inside resists. It feels unnatural. It feels heavy. It feels like you are pretending to be someone you no longer are. That resistance is not failure. It is confirmation. Michael reveals that this stage of transformation often feels like loss before it feels like growth. Because the old self, even if it was limiting, was still familiar. It gave you a sense of identity, a way to navigate the world, a structure to rely on. And as it begins to crack, there is a moment where you feel like you are standing in between identities, no longer fully who you were, but not yet fully anchored in who you are becoming. This in-between space can feel unsettling. You may feel uncertain about your decisions. You may feel disconnected from your usual sense of direction. You may even feel moments of doubt, wondering if something is wrong, if you are losing clarity instead of gaining it. But hear this clearly. You are not losing clarity. You are losing illusion. And illusion rarely leaves without resistance. The signs of this shift are everywhere if you look closely. You are becoming more aware of your patterns, noticing things about yourself that once went unquestioned. You are feeling a stronger pull toward authenticity, even when it makes things more complicated. You are less willing to compromise your inner truth just to maintain external harmony. These are not small changes. These are foundational. Michael shows that the cracking of the old self is necessary because it creates space. Space for new understanding, a new identity, a new alignment to take root. But before that new structure can form, the old one must release its hold. And that release is not always comfortable. There may be moments where you feel alone in this process. Moments where you feel like no one fully understands what is happening inside you. And in some ways, that is true, because this shift is deeply personal. It is not something that can be fully explained to others who are not experiencing it from within. But you are not alone. He is with you in this. Michael stands as a witness to this transformation, not interfering with the process, but guiding your awareness through it. He reminds you that this breaking is not an ending. It is a beginning, a necessary unraveling that allows you to step into something more aligned, more truthful, more powerful than what you have known before. So do not fear the cracks. Do not rush to fix them. Do not try to hold together what is naturally falling away. Let it break. Let it release. Because what is coming through those cracks is that loss, it is light. And that light is revealing who you were always meant to be. Type "I embrace the shift" in the comments if you recognize these signs within you. Blessing code 3030 is now surrounding your transformation. As this old self begins to break and light starts to pour through the cracks, understand this. Every time you help this message reach another soul, you become part of someone else's awakening. This is not about supporting a channel. This is about fueling a divine ripple that carries truth into hearts that are still trapped in the same illusions you are breaking free from right now. The Lord declares, "Give, and it shall be given unto you." And this is not distant scripture. This is a living exchange unfolding in real time through your obedience. I feel led to say this directly. I am stepping into this moment as a vessel, and you are being invited to move with purpose. Your offering becomes light. Your seed becomes clarity. Your action becomes someone else's breakthrough. Do not delay what heaven is prompting in you right now. Sow into this mission through the PayPal link in the description or the QR code on your screen, and watch how God multiplies what you release back into your life. There is a moment in every awakening where you are no longer able to rely on the version of yourself you once understood. The old identity is cracking, the familiar patterns are loosening, and suddenly you are left asking a question that feels both simple and overwhelming. If I am not who I thought I was, then who am I becoming? This is where the spiritual mirror is introduced. Archangel Michael reveals that what you are entering now is not confusion, but correction. For most of your life, you have been looking at yourself through reflections shaped by the world, by people, by experiences that only saw fragments of who you are. Those reflections were incomplete. They were distorted by limitation, by projection, by misunderstanding. And over time, you accepted those reflections as reality. But heaven does not see you that way. He is showing you that there is a higher perspective available to you now, one that does not come from external validation or past conditioning, but from divine truth. And this perspective is not something you can force or fabricate. It is something that is revealed when you allow yourself to step out of the old lens and stand still long enough to receive a new one. This is why things feel unfamiliar, because you are no longer being asked to define yourself based on what you have experienced. You are being asked to see yourself based on what has always been true, even when you did not recognize it. And that requires a different kind of awareness. You may begin to notice that your inner dialogue is changing. Thoughts that once felt automatic now feel questionable. The way you speak to yourself, the way you interpret your actions, the way you judge your own worth, all of it is being brought into the light. Not to condemn you, but to realign you. Michael shows that the spiritual mirror does not reflect your past mistakes, your perceived failures, or the labels you have carried. It reflects your essence, your purpose, your alignment with truth. And when you begin to see yourself through that mirror, something profound happens. You stop negotiating your value. You stop shrinking to fit expectations that were never meant for you. You stop explaining your existence to people who only understood a limited version of you. This shift is not loud. It is not dramatic. It is quiet, but it is powerful. It shows up in the way you hold yourself, in the way you respond instead of react, in the way you choose what aligns instead of what is familiar. And others will notice it, even if they cannot explain it. But here is where the challenge emerges. Because seeing yourself through heaven's eyes requires you to release the comfort of the old mirror. And that old mirror, even though it was limiting, was predictable. You knew how to operate within it. You knew what to expect from yourself. You knew how others would respond to you. This new perspective does not come with that same predictability. It requires trust. It requires you to believe something about yourself that you have not yet fully experienced. It requires you to stand in an identity that feels unfamiliar, even as it feels true. And this is where many hesitate, because it is easier to return to what is known and to remain in what is being revealed. It is easier to accept the old reflection than to fully embrace a new one that demands growth, responsibility, and alignment. But Michael is clear in this moment. You cannot go back to seeing yourself the same way. Even if you try, it will not feel the same. The old reflection will feel incomplete, inaccurate, almost like a shadow of something you have outgrown. Because once truth is revealed, it cannot be hidden again. You are being invited to see yourself differently. Not through the eyes of fear, not through the voice of past conditioning, but through a perspective that recognizes your depth, your strength, your purpose. This does not mean you suddenly have all the answers. It does not mean you feel completely certain in every step. But it does mean that something inside you is no longer willing to accept a version of yourself that was built on limitation. And that changes everything. Because the way you see yourself determines the way you move through the world. It determines what you accept, what you pursue, what you believe is possible for you. And as this vision shifts, your actions will begin to follow. So allow this process to unfold. Do not rush to define yourself too quickly. Do not force clarity where it is still forming. Stand in the awareness that something deeper is being revealed to you. Something that cannot be reduced to old definitions or familiar labels. You are learning to see yourself as you were always meant to be seen. And that vision, once fully embraced, will guide every step that follows. Type "I see myself" clearly in the comments if you are ready to embrace this new perspective. Blessing code 4141 is now opening your spiritual vision. There is something you must understand clearly now, because this is where many begin to doubt the very shift that is meant to elevate them. As you begin to change internally, as your beliefs shift and your identity starts to realign, it does not happen in isolation. It sends a signal outward. It creates a ripple in your environment. And that ripple does not go unnoticed. Archangel Michael reveals that what you are experiencing around you is not coincidence. It is response. The people in your life, whether consciously or unconsciously, have learned how to interact with the version of you that existed before this shift began. They became familiar with your patterns, your reactions, your limits, your role within their lives. They adjusted themselves to match that version of you, and in many ways, they came to depend on it. But now, that version is changing. And when you change, it disrupts the balance they were used to. This is why you may begin to feel resistance, even from those who once felt aligned with you. It may not be obvious at first. It may come in subtle ways. A change in tone, a slight distance, a reaction that feels disproportionate to the situation. You may notice that certain people question you more, misunderstand you more, or seem uncomfortable around you without clear reason. This is not because you are doing something wrong. It is because they are sensing something different. Michael shows that when your internal belief shifts, your energy shifts with it. The way you carry yourself changes. The way you respond changes. Even your silence begins to communicate something new. And for those who are still aligned with the old version of you, this creates a kind of tension they cannot fully explain. They may try to pull you back into familiar roles. They may remind you of who you used to be. They may react in ways that make you question whether this change is worth it. And in those moments, you may feel the temptation to adjust yourself, to soften the shift, to return to what feels easier. But you must see this clearly. This resistance is not a sign to stop. It is a sign that the shift is real. Because if nothing was changing within you, nothing would change around you. Everything would remain comfortable, predictable, and aligned with the same patterns you have always known. But that is not what is happening. You are moving beyond that. And not everyone is prepared to move with you. Michael reveals that there are different responses people will have to your transformation. Some will feel inspired by it, even if they do not fully understand it. They will sense the growth in you and feel drawn to it. Others will feel uncertain, unsure of how to relate to you as you change. And some will resist it entirely, because your growth challenges something within them they are not ready to face. This is where discernment becomes essential, because not every reaction you receive is meant to guide you. Some reactions are simply reflections of where others are in their own journey. And if you allow those reactions to define your direction, you risk slowing or distorting the very transformation that is unfolding within you. You may begin to notice that certain conversations no longer resonate, that certain dynamics feel draining instead of energizing, that certain expectations placed on you no longer feel aligned with who you are becoming. These are not random observations. They are indicators. Indicators that your internal shift is creating external clarity. And with that clarity comes a choice. You can either honor the change within you, even when it creates discomfort around you, or you can suppress it to maintain temporary harmony. But Michael makes this clear. Harmony built on misalignment will not sustain you. It will only delay what is already in motion. This does not mean you must confront everyone. It does not mean you must explain yourself to every person who questions you. In fact, much of this shift happens without words. It happens in your presence, in your boundaries, in your quiet decisions to no longer engage in what does not align. And those who are meant to remain in your life will adjust in time. Those who are not will reveal themselves through their resistance. This is not something to fear. It is something to understand. Because your transformation is not just about becoming something new. It is about revealing what was always aligned with you and what was not. So when you feel that resistance, do not internalize it as doubt. Do not assume it means you are losing connection. Recognize it for what it is, a natural response to a shift that was always going to change more than just you. And as you continue forward, grounded in this awareness, you will begin to see that not all resistance is meant to stop you. Some of it is meant to show you exactly where you no longer belong. Type "I stand in my truth" in the comments if you are ready to move forward without shrinking back. Blessing code 5252 is now strengthening your alignment. There is something deeper unfolding beneath your personal transformation, something that reaches far beyond your individual experience. This shift you are going through is not isolated. It is not contained within your thoughts, your emotions, or your immediate environment. It is extending outward, touching layers of your life that you may not have even considered. And this is where the weight of this moment becomes clear. Archangel Michael reveals that your transformation carries a generational impact. He shows that the belief you are releasing was not formed in a single moment, nor was it created solely within you. It has roots. It has history. It has moved through patterns, through behaviors, through unspoken agreements that have existed within your family line for longer than you realize. What you are confronting now is not just personal limitation. It is inherited structure. And when you begin to shift something that has been repeated across generations, it does not simply dissolve quietly. It creates a ripple. That ripple moves backward, forward, and outward. It touches the past by breaking patterns that were never questioned. It touches the present by disrupting dynamics that have been normalized. And it touches the future by altering what will no longer be passed down. This is why this shift feels heavier at times. Because on some level, you are not just navigating your own change. You are standing at the intersection of what has been and what will no longer continue. Michael shows that within every family line, there are patterns that repeat without awareness. Ways of thinking, ways of responding, ways of relating. These patterns become so familiar that they are rarely challenged. They are accepted as just the way things are. And over time, they shape identity, expectation, and limitation. But you were not meant to simply carry those patterns forward. You were meant to interrupt them. This is why you feel different. This is why you have always sensed things more deeply, questioned things more intensely, or felt out of alignment with certain dynamics that others accepted without hesitation. It was not because something was wrong with you. It was because something within you was not designed to conform to what was already established. And now, the difference is becoming more pronounced. As your belief about yourself shifts, it begins to challenge the unspoken structures around you. The way you respond to situations changes. The roles you once played begin to dissolve. The expectations that were placed on you no longer hold the same authority. And this can create tension. Not because you are causing conflict, but because you are no longer reinforcing what once held everything in place. Michael reveals that when one person in a family begins to change at this level, it forces a kind of awareness into the system. Others may not recognize it consciously, but they feel it. They sense that something is different. And because that difference disrupts what is familiar, it can create resistance, confusion, or even distance. But this is not a sign that you are doing something wrong. It is a sign that you are breaking something that was never meant to continue. You are shifting the trajectory. And that shift does not just affect you. It affects what comes after you. The way you choose to see yourself now will influence the way others learn to see themselves. The boundaries you begin to set will redefine what is considered acceptable. The truth you begin to live in will challenge the illusions that others have been operating within. This is the ripple effect. It is not always immediate. It is not always visible. But it is real. Michael shows that even if others do not understand your transformation right now, it plants something. It introduces a new possibility, a new way of being that did not exist in the same way before. And over time, that possibility can grow, even in those who initially resisted it. But here is where your focus must remain clear. You are not responsible for forcing others to change. You are not here to convince, to explain, or to carry the weight of everyone else's understanding. Your role is to remain aligned with the shift happening within you, because that alignment is what creates the ripple. If you begin to compromise your transformation to maintain comfort around you, the ripple weakens. The pattern remains intact. The opportunity for change is delayed. But if you stay grounded in this new awareness, even when it feels uncomfortable, even when it creates distance, even when it challenges everything you have known, the ripple strengthens. And over time, it becomes something that cannot be ignored. Michael reveals that this is how generational patterns are broken. Not through force, not through confrontation, but through consistent alignment with truth. You are standing in a moment where what you choose now will echo beyond you. So do not minimize this shift. Do not dismiss it as something small or temporary. Recognize it for what it is, a turning point. A moment where something that has existed for longer than you realize is beginning to end and something new is beginning to take its place. And you are at the center of that change. Type "I break the pattern" in the comments if you are ready to stand in this transformation fully. Blessing code 6060 is now activating generational alignment through you. There comes a point in every transformation where awareness alone is no longer enough. You have seen the shift. You have felt the breaking. You have recognized the patterns and sensed the deeper meaning behind what is happening within you. But now, you are entering a different phase, one that requires not just understanding but decision. Archangel Michael reveals that this is the test of alignment. It is the moment where what you now know begins to confront what you have always done. It is where truth stands in front of you, clear and undeniable, while the familiar pulls at you from behind, offering comfort, ease, and the illusion of stability. And in this space, you are asked to choose, not once, but repeatedly. You may think the hardest part was realizing that something needed to change. But the deeper challenge is allowing that change to guide your actions, especially when those actions disrupt what has always felt normal. Because the familiar does not disappear quietly. It calls you back. It reminds you what was easy, what was predictable, what required less from you. And this is where many hesitate. Because truth, while liberating, is also demanding. It asks you to stand differently, to respond differently, to walk away from what no longer aligns, even when it still feels connected to you. And that can feel uncomfortable, even isolating at times. Michael shows that the test of alignment is not about perfection. It is about consistency. It is about whether you are willing to honor what has been revealed to you, even when it would be easier to ignore it. You may find yourself in situations where the old version of you would have reacted automatically, where you would have said yes without thinking, tolerated without questioning, stayed silent instead of expressing what you truly feel. And now, in those same moments, there is a pause, a space, and choice. You feel the difference. You recognize that you can no longer move the same way without feeling misaligned. But at the same time, choosing differently may create tension. It may require you to step outside of expectations, to risk misunderstanding, to accept that not everyone will immediately support or understand your shift. This is the test, not of your strength but of your alignment. Michael reveals that every time you choose truth over familiarity, you reinforce the new identity that is forming within you. And every time you return to old patterns out of comfort or fear, you delay that alignment. Not permanently, but enough to feel the difference. You will feel it. The moment you act against your new awareness, there is a subtle disconnect, a heaviness, a sense that something is not quite right. That is not guilt. That is not judgment. That is alignment signaling that you are moving against the direction you are meant to follow. And when you honor the truth instead, even when it is difficult, there is a different feeling. It may not always be immediate relief, but there is clarity. There is steadiness. There is a quiet sense that you are standing where you are supposed to be, even if everything around you is not yet adjusted. This is how the shift becomes real, not through thought alone, but through action. Michael shows that this phase is where your transformation begins to take form in the physical world. Your decisions begin to reflect your new understanding. Your boundaries begin to reshape your relationships. Your direction begins to shift based on what aligns, not just what is available. And with each aligned choice, the old identity loses its hold. It becomes less convincing, less comfortable, less able to pull you back into what you have outgrown. But the process is not always smooth. There may be moments where you feel torn between what you know and what you are used to. Moments where you question whether it would be easier to just return to the old way of being. Moments where you feel the weight of choosing differently, especially when it affects your connections, your environment, or your sense of belonging. In those moments, you must remember this. You are not being asked to abandon yourself. You are being asked to honor yourself. There is a difference, and that difference is what defines this phase of your journey. Michael stands as a reminder that truth does not force you. It invites you. It shows you what is real and allows you to decide how you will respond. And in that decision, you shape the path forward. So when the choice arises, as it will again and again, do not rush it. Feel it. Recognize it. And choose in alignment with what you now know to be true. Because every aligned choice strengthens the foundation of who you are becoming. And every step in truth moves you further away from the version of yourself that was never meant to remain. Type "I choose truth" in the comments if you are ready to stand in alignment, no matter how unfamiliar it feels. Blessing code 7070 is now anchoring your decisions in divine clarity. There is a phase in every transformation that feels like stillness, but it is not the kind of stillness that brings peace right away. It is the kind that feels unfamiliar, almost unsettling, as if something has paused without explanation. You have already felt the shift within you. You have begun to choose differently. You have started to see yourself through a new lens. And yet, now things feel quiet. Archangel Michael reveals that this silence is not absence. It is preparation. It is the space between what has ended and what has not yet fully begun. And this space can feel confusing if you do not understand it. Because you may expect that once you align with truth, everything will immediately become clear. That doors will open quickly, that direction will feel obvious, that the path ahead will reveal itself without hesitation. But instead, you find yourself in a moment where movement slows, where clarity seems partial, where you are asked to wait without fully knowing what comes next. This is intentional. Michael shows that the silence exists to stabilize you. The old identity has been breaking. The new awareness has been forming. But before you can fully step into what is next, there must be a period where you are not reacting, not rushing, not trying to control the outcome. You are being grounded in who you are becoming, without the distraction of constant movement. This is where many feel uncertain. Because without constant feedback, without immediate results, without clear external confirmation, the mind begins to question. You may wonder if you are on the right path. You may feel the urge to act just to escape the stillness. You may even consider returning to old patterns simply because they feel more active, more familiar, more defined. But this is where you must remain aware. This silence is not emptiness. It is alignment settling into place. Michael reveals that when you move too quickly after a shift, you risk building your next phase on an unstable foundation. You carry remnants of the old identity into new decisions, and those decisions begin to reflect confusion rather than clarity. This is why the pause exists, not to delay you but to refine you. You are being recalibrated. Your thoughts are aligning with truth. Your emotions are adjusting to a new sense of self. Your instincts are becoming sharper, more reliable, more connected to what is real. And this process requires space. It requires stillness. It requires moments where nothing seems to be happening on the surface, even though everything is shifting beneath it. You may notice that certain things no longer interest you the way they once did, that distractions feel less satisfying, that you are more selective with your time, your energy, your attention. This is part of the silence. It is clearing what no longer belongs in your next phase. And at the same time, what is meant for you is not yet fully entered. So you stand in between, no longer attached to the old, not yet fully connected to the new. This is the threshold. Michael shows that this is one of the most important stages, because it determines how you will step forward. If you rush, you may recreate what you just left behind. If you remain grounded, you allow something more aligned to emerge. This is why patience becomes essential. Not passive waiting, but active awareness. You are not being asked to do nothing. You are being asked to observe, to listen, to remain connected to the shift within you without forcing external movement before it is time. And yes, this may feel uncomfortable, because you are used to movement. You are used to doing, responding, adjusting. But now, you are learning to be, to exist in alignment without needing immediate confirmation. And this changes everything. Because when the next step does reveal itself, it will not come from urgency. It will come from clarity. It will not feel forced. It will feel natural, even if it leads you into something unfamiliar. Michael makes this clear. What is coming next will require a version of you that is steady, not reactive. Grounded, not uncertain. Aligned, not searching. And this silence is shaping that version of you. So do not misinterpret this phase. Do not assume that nothing is happening. Understand that this is where your transformation is being anchored, where your new identity is settling into place, where your direction is being prepared before it is revealed. Stay here. Stay present. Because what follows this silence will not require you to question whether it is right. You will know. Type "I trust the process" in the comments if you are ready to remain grounded in this silence. Blessing code 8080 is now stabilizing your path. As you stand in this sacred silence, understand this. Every seed you release into this mission becomes a voice in someone else's stillness, guiding them when they feel lost just as you once did. This is not about giving to a platform. It is about opening a river of truth that flows into hearts waiting for clarity. The word declares, "Those who sow in faith shall reap in abundance," and this is your moment to act in that living promise. I feel this strongly. I am stepping forward in obedience, and you are being called to respond with purpose. Your support through the PayPal link in the description or the QR code on your screen is not a transaction. It is a prophetic act that releases light into unseen places. What you give today becomes someone else's breakthrough tomorrow. Do not hesitate. Move now, and watch how heaven moves back toward you. There is something awakening inside you now that you may not fully recognize yet. It is subtle, but it is persistent. It does not force itself into your awareness, but it remains present, waiting for you to acknowledge it. This is not a new voice being created within you. It is a voice that has always been there, but was often overshadowed by noise, by doubt, by the beliefs you once carried about yourself. Archangel Michael reveals that as your old identity breaks and your new awareness settles, you are being guided back to something essential: your ability to trust your own spirit. For a long time, you have relied on external confirmation. You have looked for validation in the responses of others, in outcomes, in signs that told you whether you were moving in the right direction. And while those things may have guided you at certain points, they also created a dependence, a hesitation to move without reassurance, a habit of questioning yourself even when something within you already knew. But now, that pattern is being challenged. You are being brought into a deeper level of alignment where your inner knowing becomes your primary guide. This is not immediate. It is something you will learn. Because trusting your spirit requires you to distinguish it from the other voices you have become familiar with. A voice of fear that urges you to retreat. The voice of doubt that questions your worth. A voice of habit that tries to pull you back into what is comfortable. These voices are loud because they have been repeated for so long. But your spirit speaks differently. It is calm. It is clear. It does not rush you, and it does not confuse you. Michael shows that one of the reasons this phase feels uncertain at times is because you are learning to recognize this voice again. You are learning to pause long enough to hear it, to separate it from the noise that has surrounded it for so long. You may notice this in small moments. A quiet sense of knowing about a decision before you fully think it through. A subtle feeling that something is right or wrong, even if you cannot immediately explain why. A pull toward something that feels aligned, even if it does not yet make logical sense. These are not random impressions. These are signals. And the more you begin to acknowledge them, the clearer they become. But here is where the challenge arises. Because trusting your spirit often requires you to move without complete external certainty. It asks you to act on what you feel is true, even when you cannot fully prove it. And this can feel uncomfortable, especially if you have been conditioned to rely on evidence, on approval, on visible assurance before making a decision. Michael reveals that this discomfort is part of the process. Because you are shifting from external dependence to internal alignment. And that shift requires practice. There will be moments where you hesitate, where you question whether what you feel is real or imagined. There may be times where you ignore that inner voice, only to realize later that it was guiding you accurately. And there will be moments where you follow it, even when it feels uncertain, and begin to see the results of that trust. This is how your confidence builds, not through perfection, but through experience. Each time you listen, each time you act in alignment with that inner knowing, you strengthen your connection to it. You begin to recognize its tone, its consistency, its presence in your life. And over time, it becomes something you no longer question in the same way. Michael shows that this is essential for what is ahead, because the next phase of your journey will not always come with clear instructions from the outside. It will require you to move based on what you know within, to make decisions that align with your truth, even when others do not fully understand them. This is where your strength develops, not in controlling every outcome, but in trusting the guidance that is already within you. So when you feel that quiet voice, do not dismiss it. Do not rush past it. Pause. Listen. Allow it to become clear, because it is leading you in a direction that aligns with who you are becoming, not who you were. And as you continue to trust it, you will begin to notice something change. You will feel less dependent on external validation, less uncertain about your direction, more grounded in your decisions, even when they lead you into unfamiliar territory. This is not coincidence. This is alignment deepening. You are not being left to figure everything out on your own. You are being guided from within. and that guidance, when trusted, will take you exactly where you are meant to go. Type "I trust my inner voice" in the comments if you are ready to follow your spirit without hesitation. Blessing code 9090 is now strengthening your inner guidance. There is a moment in every transformation that feels like a quiet unraveling, where what once felt connected begins to loosen its hold on you. It does not always happen with conflict. It does not always come with clear endings or dramatic conclusions. Sometimes, it arrives as a realization, a knowing, a quiet awareness that something you once held on to no longer fits the person you are becoming. Archangel Michael reveals that this is the separation phase. It is not punishment. It is not loss in the way you once understood it. It is alignment making space. Because as your identity shifts, as your inner truth becomes clearer, there are elements in your life that simply cannot move forward with you in the same way. Not because they are wrong, not because they are bad, but because they were built around a version of you that no longer exists. And this is where the weight of change becomes real. You may begin to feel a natural distance from certain people, certain environment, certain habit, even certain thought. Things that once felt essential now feel optional. Things that once felt aligned now feel forced. And this can bring a mixture of emotions, because you are not just letting go of what no longer matches you. You are also releasing familiarity. Michael shows that familiarity often disguises itself as necessity. You may feel obligated to maintain connections that no longer feel genuine. You may feel responsible for keeping dynamics intact, even when they drain you. You may question whether stepping away makes you distant, ungrateful, or disconnected. But you must understand this clearly. Letting go is not rejection. It is recognition. Recognition that you cannot continue to carry what no longer aligns with your truth without compromising the very transformation you have been guided into. This phase does not always require physical separation. Sometimes it is internal. A shift in how you engage, how you respond, how much energy you invest. Sometimes it is a quiet boundary that no one else fully sees, but you feel clearly within yourself. And sometimes it does become external. Conversations become less frequent. Interactions become more distant. Certain spaces no longer feel like places you belong. And while this may feel uncomfortable at first, it is not something to resist. It is something to understand. Michael reveals that holding on to what no longer aligns will not preserve connection. It will only create internal conflict, because you will be trying to exist in two versions of yourself at once, the one you have outgrown and the one you are stepping into. And the tension cannot sustain itself. Eventually, something will have to give. This is why this phase is necessary. It allows you to release gradually, consciously, without forcing an abrupt break that leaves you confused or reactive. It gives you the space to adjust, to process, to understand what is changing and why. You may find yourself reflecting on certain relationships, certain patterns, certain parts of your life, seeing them differently than you did before. Not with judgment, but with clarity. You begin to recognize what was based on old beliefs, what was sustained by old habits, what was maintained simply because it was familiar. And as that clarity deepens, so does your ability to let go. But here is where the challenge often arises, because letting go does not always feel like relief at first. Sometimes it feels like uncertainty. Sometimes it feels like standing in a space that is not yet filled by what is next. And in those moments, there is a temptation to return, to reconnect, to reattach to what you already know, just to avoid the discomfort of the unknown. Michael is clear in this moment. Do not return to what you have already outgrown, even if it feels easier, even if it feels more stable, because what you are stepping into requires space, and that space cannot exist if it is filled with what no longer aligns. You are not being left with emptiness. You are being given room. Room for new connections that match your growth. Room for new experiences that align with your truth. Room for a version of your life that reflects who you are becoming, not who you used to be. This is not the end of connection. It is the refinement of it. And as you move through this phase with awareness, with patience, with trust, you will begin to see that what remains is not less meaningful. It is more aligned. So allow the separation. Do not force what is naturally fading. Do not hold on to what is gently releasing. Because what is meant to stay will not require you to shrink to keep it. And what is meant to leave will not remain just because you hold on tighter. You are not losing what matters. You are clearing the path for what truly belongs. Type ILET go with trust in the comments if you are ready to release what no longer aligns. Blessing code 1010 is now guiding your separation with clarity. Here is a moment when everything you have been feeling, questioning, releasing, and realigning finally reaches a point of embodiment. It is no longer just awareness. It is no longer just internal change. It becomes action, presence, and authority. This is where you are being led now. Archangel Michael reveals that this is the activation. It is the point where your new identity is no longer something you are discovering, but something you are living. And there is a difference between the two. Discovery is internal. It is reflective. It is where you begin to understand what is shifting within you. But activation is external. It is where that understanding begins to shape how you move, how you speak, how you choose, and how you show up in every area of your life. This is where many hesitate, because stepping into a new identity requires you to move before everything feels completely certain. It requires you to act in alignment with what you now know, even when the external world has not fully adjusted to reflect it yet. And that can feel unfamiliar, even intimidating. But Michael makes this clear. You are not waiting to become this version of yourself. You already are. The shift has already happened within you. The belief has already begun to change. The awareness has already taken root. What remains now is your willingness to stand in it without retreating. You may notice this activation in subtle ways at first. The way you respond to situations carries more clarity, less hesitation. The way you communicate feels more direct, more grounded, less influenced by the need to be understood or approved. The way you make decisions begins to reflect alignment rather than uncertainty. These are not small changes. They are expressions of authority. Not authority over others, but authority within yourself. Michael shows that this is what has been building through every previous stage. The breaking of the old identity, the recognition of limiting beliefs, the resistance you faced, the silence you moved through, the separation you allowed, all of it has been preparing you for this moment. Because without those stages, this activation would not be stable. You would be reactive, inconsistent, easily influenced. But now, there is a foundation. And from that foundation, you are being asked to move. This does not mean everything suddenly becomes easy. There may still be moments where you feel the pull of the old identity, where familiar thoughts or habits try to resurface. But the difference now is that you recognize them. They no longer define you. They no longer hold the same authority over your choices. And this is where your power lies. Not in never experiencing doubt, but in no longer being directed by. Michael reveals that stepping into your new identity also changes how others perceive you. The same people who once understood you in a certain way may begin to see you differently. Some will respect the shift. Some will question it. Some may not know how to respond at all. But this is no longer something that determines your direction. Because your direction is no longer based on external perception. It is based on internal alignment. You are no longer waiting for permission to be who you are becoming. You are no longer adjusting yourself to fit expectations that were built around a version of you that no longer exists. You are standing in something new, and that requires consistency. Because activation is not a single moment. It is a continuous choice. Each day, you are given opportunities to either reinforce this new identity or return to what is familiar. Each decision, each response, each action becomes part of how this identity takes form in your life. And over time, as you continue to choose alignment, something shifts. What once felt unfamiliar becomes natural. What once required effort becomes instinct. What once felt like a risk becomes your standard. This is when the activation becomes complete. Not because everything around you has changed, but because you no longer need it to. Michael stands as a reminder that this phase is where your transformation becomes visible. Not just to others, but to yourself. You begin to see the difference in how you think, how you feel, how you move through your life. And that recognition reinforces everything you have been stepping into. So do not hold back now. Do not wait for the perfect moment, the perfect confirmation, the perfect condition. That moment has already arrived. You are in it. And everything you have experienced up to this point have been leading you here. To this step. To this embodiment. To this identity that no longer needs to be questioned. Only live. Stand in it. Move with it. Let it define your direction from this point forward. Because you are no longer becoming. You are now being. Type "I step into my power" in the comments if you are ready to fully embody this new identity. Blessing code 1111 is now activating your authority. There is a final truth that must be spoken now, and it carries both weight and clarity. Everything you have experienced up to this point, every shift, every realization, every moment of discomfort and awakening, has not been random. It hath been leading to a decision. Not one that is forced upon you, but one that stands before you now with quiet urgency. Archangel Michael reveals that this is the threshold. You are no longer in the phase of discovery. You are no longer unaware of what is changing within you. You have seen the cracks. You have felt the separation. You have heard the voice within. You have begun to step into something new. And now, you stand at a point where your response determines what unfolds next. Because every transformation reaches a moment where it either continues forward or is delayed by retreat. Michael does not speak this as a threat. He speaks it as truth. If you ignore this shift, if you choose to return fully to what is familiar, to silence the awareness that has awakened within you, the old patterns will not disappear. They will reattach. They will regain strength through repetition. The identity you were outgrowing will begin to feel normal again, not because it is true, but because it is practiced. And you will feel the subtle misalignment, the quiet discomfort that you now recognize, but try to ignore. You will sense that something is off, even if everything appears the same on the surface. Because once you have seen truth, you cannot fully return to illusion without feeling the difference. This is why this moment matters. Not because something external is being taken from you, but because something internal is asking to be honored. But now hear the other side. Because the path of acceptance carries something far greater. If you choose to continue forward, to stand in what has been revealed to you, to align your actions with the identity that is forming within you, something begins to unfold with clarity and precision. Not all at once, not in overwhelming ways, but steadily. You begin to move differently. You begin to attract differently. You begin to experience your life through a perspective that is no longer limited by the beliefs you once carried. And what once felt uncertain begins to feel aligned. Michael shows that this is where your life starts to reflect your transformation. Opportunities that match your new identity begin to appear. Connections that align with your truth begin to form. Decisions that once felt difficult become clearer, because they are no longer filtered through doubt, but through understanding. This is the blessing. Not something given to you from the outside, but something activated within you that begins to shake everything around you. But it requires one thing: consistency. Because this shift is not maintained by a single decision. It is maintained by your continued alignment with what you now know to be true. Each day, you are given the opportunity to reinforce this identity, to live from it, to allow it to guide you. And as you do, it becomes stronger, more natural, more integrated into every part of who you are. Michael stands as a witness to this moment, not to decide for you, but to remind you of what is at stake. Not in fear, but in awareness. You are not the same person you were before this message reached you. Something has already changed. And whether you fully embrace it now or take time to step into it, the truth remains the same. You have crossed a point of awareness that cannot be undone. So the question is not whether the shift is real. The question is whether you will live in alignment with it. Because what you choose now will not only shape your path, it will define it. And as you stand here, at this final moment of clarity, understand this. You are not being asked to become something you are not. You are being asked to fully step into what you already are. There is no need to wait. There is no need to hesitate. Everything you need to move forward is already within you. And this is where your journey continues. Not in uncertainty, but in decision. Type "I accept my NEW path" in the comments if you are ready to walk forward without looking back. Blessing code 1212 is now sealing your transformation. As this transformation reaches its final revelation, understand this deeply. Every soul awakened through this message becomes a light in someone else's darkness, and you have the power to multiply that light. This is not about supporting a video. This is about advancing a divine assignment that is reaching hearts at the exact moment they are ready to change. The Lord declares, "Cast your seed upon the waters, and it shall return to you." And this is that living moment where your action carries eternal impact. I feel this clearly. I am stepping into obedience, and you are being called to move in alignment with that same divine prompting. When you give through the PayPal link in the description or scan the QR code on your screen, you are not losing anything. You are releasing something that heaven will multiply back into your life. Your seed becomes someone's awakening. Your generosity becomes someone's breakthrough. Do not delay this moment. Act now, and let your giving become part of the miracle God is unfolding through this message.